Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Liaquat Zaman. Ahlan wa sahlan. Welcome to my channel. If you guys are not familiar with my channel, check it out. I make videos of all sorts of topics: Arabic, grammar, sarf, hadith, fiqh, Quran. I do live streams. Check that all out, inshallah. And if you like it, hit the like button, hit the bell button to keep up to date with everything that's happening. Right, so let's continue with this book then. So we are covering Kanz al-Daqaiq, which is, like I always say, it's an important book in the Hanafi tradition. But more importantly, it's a very condensed text, which requires explanation. So that's why here we're trying to explain this text. So he says, and this is the last section of Khiyar Shartna. So this is the last section we're going to cover, and then the next chapter is going to be a new chapter altogether. So he says, وَصَحَّ خِيَارُ التَّعْيِينِ فِيمَا دُونَ الْأَرْبَعَةِ. So it's permissible, it's valid to have a choice in ta'yin, in specification, as long as فِيمَا دُونَ الْأَرْبَعَةِ, that the number of items that you have a choice in is less than 4, meaning 3, 2. So what's the example of this then? So let's say, for example, I go to your shop and you have, let's say you're selling, I don't know, let's say you're selling some laptops and I want to buy a laptop, but I'm not too sure which laptop is the best one to buy. So in this case, am I allowed to do this, right? Am I allowed to say, okay, I'll have laptop A, let's say for example Sony, laptop B, let's say an Apple, and laptop C, let's say an Asus, right? So Sony, Apple and Asus. So these are 3 laptops I have. I'm not sure which one I want, because as we all know, when people buy laptops, you know, the laptops can vary from one end of the spectrum to another depending on what you need it for and how you're going to use it. So I want to go home and I want to see the 3 and then I want to decide and choose one of them. So I only want to buy one. So clearly 2 of them I don't want to buy. Is this allowed or not? So the Hanafis say, technically, no, it's not allowed, right? Because theoretically, if you buy something, you must buy something which is something that you have specified. If you haven't specified what you want to buy, even if you're in 2 minds about buying that thing, at least it has to be specified. Therefore, in this case, this should not be allowed. Why should this not be allowed? Because you're taking 3 things away and you're not interested in 2 of them, clearly. It's only one of them. But you're not sure which one that is. And this seems to fall into the category of buying something or selling something with jahala, with ambiguity, right? So or without knowing. So if that's the case, why is it allowed then? Why do the Hanafis allow it? So the Hanafis say this is actually allowed because it's for hajatun nas. And this is an important point that Hanafis raise, which is, look, will it make people buy and sell more in society? Will it make life easier for them, for the average customer? If I want to go and buy a laptop, will it make my life easier in choosing a laptop? Or would I find it extremely difficult to buy a laptop because I don't know which one I want to get? So clearly they say there's a haja, and that haja is the need for people to be able to make wise decisions when they're buying things. You don't want to force people to have to make a decision on the spur of the moment when you go to the shop. You don't know what to do and you just choose it. So, or you take khiyar al-shart, for example. I buy a Sony laptop and I say I've got khiyar for 3 days, but you don't want to do with every laptop, do you? Because it's just going to take too long, right? So if I do Sony, like let's say Friday today, I do a Sony, khiyar al-shart 3 days, so Monday, and then I go back and say I don't want this, and then on Monday I choose Apple. And then I have 3 days. It's going to take me at least a week or so to buy a simple thing like a laptop. So the Hanafis say that the haja is there, the need is there. That's the underlying sort of reason. And therefore the person should be allowed. But then the question comes is, how many does a person need to have a choice in for that haja, for that need to no longer exist, right? So they came up with a number. They said 4 seems to be a reasonable number, 4. And what does that mean? It means that if you have, for example, 3 items, one of them is going to be like on the top of your list, good. One of them is going to be really bad, and one of them is going to be in the middle, right? But if you have 4, you don't have this. Like if you have 4, one is the best, one is the lowest. But then you got 2 others which don't really fit anywhere. So that's why they said 3 makes sense, because every time you have a choice of 3 things, you're always gonna put 1 first, 1 second, and 1 third. So that's why they use the number 3. So صح خيار التعيين. So خيار of ta'yin is permissible فيما دون الأربعة, anything that is less than 3. Now, some of the later Hanafis have actually discussed. They said, well, خيار التعيين, what if a time comes where you need to have a choice of more than 3? Will we say that this is allowed? So for instance, like Mufti Taqi Usmani in his book Fiqh al-Buyu has actually discussed this masala, and he says that Imam Ka'sani in Badai al-Sanai has said that the illa, the ultimate reason, underlying reason, the legal sort of reasoning behind this less than 4 is haja, tandafi'ul haja bi-thalath, right? So the haja is repelled if you have 3. But if we take that illa and we say in today's times, let's say there's a business and they have, like various sort of like products that are presented to them, and they can't go and test each one separately, and it's going to take a long time, like we said before. So would they be allowed to have more? So he says, well, if the illa in their days was tandafi'ul haja, the need, then if a haja exists in more than 3, in 4 or 5 or 6, then that should be allowed as well. So as you can see, what the Hanafis do is they try to understand what the classical Hanafis have said, what the classical Hanafis have said in their books, what was the underlying reasons that they have highlighted, and then they're trying to take these points and how to apply them in today's time, right? And that's one of the beauties of studying fiqh and trying to see its application in modern times. It's how scholars are trying to make sense of application of the Sharia in different times. So he says that based upon what Kasani says, it should be allowed, right? Which actually makes sense as well if you think about it. So that's why the Hanafis allow khiyar al-ta'yin. Anyway, going back to what we were saying, what are the conditions for khiyar al-ta'yin to be allowed? Khiyar al-ta'yin is allowed with several conditions. Number 1, that the first thing is that you have to have stipulated this khiyar, this option in the contract. So at the time of making the contract, you have to have stipulated then. If the 2 parties separate, like if I buy off you, 3 laptops. If I buy 1 laptop off you and I ask, can I check the other 2 as well? Right? If I say that I want to check the other 2, otherwise I will not buy one, then that is not allowed, because that would be considered to be something which is not part of the contract. But in the contract, if you say, look, I will buy this off you on the condition that you give me a choice in these 3 to buy one, that is allowed. So post ta'yin would not be allowed, and prior would be allowed. Okay, then someone asks a question, what if, let's say, I buy off you a laptop, right? But then I say to you, look, you're my friend and I know you. Is it okay if I just take the 2 other laptops and just test them as well? That's fine, but that will not come under this sale. If you do test them and you come back and you want to buy them, then that would require a new contract. Does that make sense? Okay. Another condition they mention is that the item that the 3 items that you are having khiyar in, they have to be things that are not homogeneous. Yeah, they have to be heterogeneous, different things. So if you have, let's say for example, 3 bags of rice which are exactly the same, no different, then there's no point of khiyar al-ta'yin, because khiyar of ta'yin should be done in something where there's a difference between each one. So they discuss fungible items, non-fungible items. And also a third condition is that the time scale has to be mentioned, right? So it has to be mentioned how long you want it for. And Hanafis say they use the same, ikhtilaf of the 3 days of khiyar al-shart. So they kind of like do a sort of qiyas there. And they say khiyar al-ta'yin would work like Abu Hanifa would say 3 days, and the Sahibain would say more than 3 days. Okay, and later Hanafis have actually taken, many of them have taken, like Tahawi and others, and later Hanafis have taken the position of the Sahibain to be more practical, right? Anyway, that masla is finished. Right, next masla. ولو اشتريا على أنهما بالخيار فرضي أحدهما لا يرده الآخر. Let's say 2 people were to buy a laptop now. So 2 people came to your shop, me and my friend Khalid. So we've come to your shop and we both have purchased the item. In the contract, we've stipulated we would like khiyar al-shart. Yeah, khiyar al-shart. فَرَضِيَ أَحَدُهُمَا. So on Friday, we purchased the laptop with khiyar al-shart. So we've got 3 days. On Saturday, Khalid says he's happy with it. He tells you he's happy with it. Does that mean that I still have my choice? So Hanafi say no. The choice drops. In other words, if one of the two people, they accept the item, the choice drops from the other person. Yeah, so فَرَضِيَ أَحَدُهُمَا لَا يَرُدُّهُ الْآخَرُ. The other does not have the permission because their argument is, look, you can't like split khiyar al-shart. Khiyar al-shart cannot be divided. It's one item, it's one contract. So you can't divide it, because if you divide it, then the whole concept of one contract, tafriq al-safqa and other problems would fall into it. So this is why it's avoided. You avoid this over here, and you're not allowed to split this choice, right? If one is happy, it's accepted. Khalas. Yeah, رَضِيَ أَحَدُهُمَا لَا يَرُدُّهُ الْآخَرُ. The other person cannot reject it, right? So that masla is like straightforward. That is, so 2 people, 3 people buy something, 4 people buy something. You can have as many purchases as you want of a shared item, but if one of them accepts, everyone else's right drops over there. All right, last issue now. So he says, وَلَوْ اشْتَرَى عَبْدًا. If a person was to buy a slave, right, عَلَى أَنَّهُ خَبَّازٌ, on the condition, right, the reason that they bought the slave was on the condition that the slave is a baker or is a writer, knows how to write. Right? Like this, for example, you want to buy a slave. I mean, in today's times, obviously we don't have slaves, so we can use other examples. Let's say, for instance, I purchase, let's say, a car, or let's just say a laptop, mobile phone. I purchase a mobile phone off you because I want to be able to do live streams on that mobile phone. I want that mobile phone to have facilities to be able to do live stream, 4K live stream. Yeah. Okay. So I take the mobile phone back home and I find that I can't do 4K live stream. The mobile phone works very well. It's got all the functions of a normal mobile phone, but it just does not do 4K. Does this mean that the contract is now nullified, right? Or does it go through? How does it work? So the example that they gave is about a slave. You buy a slave on the condition that the slave is a baker, is good at baking, or is good at writing. You take it home and you find out the slave doesn't know this. وَكَانَ بِخِلَافِهِ. And then it turns out that the slave is opposite to how you expected. What do? So the Hanafis say, أَخَذَهُ بِكُلِّ الثَّمَنِ. Right? Either you take it for the full value of the price. Right? So let's say the slave cost £1,000. You either take it for the full price of the slave, or taraka, or you leave it. That's it. Just leave the slave. So in other words, you either leave the contract, get your full refund back. So if it's a laptop or a mobile phone in this case, I purchased off you a mobile phone that cost £1,000 because I bought it. I thought there was going to be 4K function in there. I take it home and there's no 4K function in there. What do? Either I keep the mobile phone for the price, I pay you the £1,000 and I keep it and I'm just say, okay, it's fine. Or I return the phone to you and I get my money back. Full refund, right? Why is this for? So the reason for this is because the Hanafis say, look, when you buy an item, mubadalatul mali bil mal, exchanging of goods for goods, bit taradi, with consent, is the main crux of a contract. Okay, if you don't find that contract, if you don't find that item intact as you bought it, right, for the price, if it does not fit the price, if you don't buy the item, it does not fit the price, like something's missing from there, which is part of the price, that would be considered to be a defect in the item, which is the topic in the next chapter. So a defect in an item is something which obviously a person can return the item. Yeah. But if a person does not find the main item that they purchased, like I bought off you a mobile phone and I got, let's say, I don't know, a remote control for a TV. Yeah. I don't know, some crazy remote control for a TV. That's clearly, that transaction has not happened because the items are two different things. The genus are very different. But if the item is missing, like a defect in there, so this would be, for example, like considered to be like a defect. So I found it to be a slave I found didn't know how to cook or bake. That's a defect, guys. Now they say that if you were to break down the price, itemize the price, and you didn't have a value for that specific trait in the item. So I bought a mobile phone off you, didn't I? The mobile phone was equal to £1,000, but the functions in the phone were not itemized. Like in the receipt, it didn't mention, okay, the mobile phone is 1,000. Let's break down this 1,000. The mobile phone body itself costs 500. The software inside of it costs 200. The this and that and the 4K thing costs £100. I didn't do that. If I had done that, then it would have been different. Then I wouldn't have to pay £1,000 for it, because each wasf, each sort of characteristic in the item itself has been given a numerical value, right? In currency, it's given a value in currency. So therefore, I would not have to pay the 1,000. I would simply deduct what's missing in the phone. So if the 4K function was missing, and the 4K, I know in the receipt it was written that the 4K function costs this much, and it's missing, clearly I don't have to pay the 1,000. I can deduct from that. But if you do not mention in the receipt, if the seller does not mention in the receipt what the 4K function is worth, then here the wasf لا يقابله شيء من الثمن, they say. The description does not equal any part of the value of the item, right? The price of the item. So how do we go about this then? So the Hanafi say, well, look, you didn't get what you expected, isn't it? We say, yeah, I didn't get what I was expecting. So that means technically you can give it back, because you can't ever be forced to buy something that you're not happy with. So you're not happy with buying a slave that can't cook, or in my case, I'm not happy with buying a phone that doesn't have 4K functions. So because of that, I should have the right to be able to give the phone back. That's my right, right? Because no one can be compelled to buy something that they don't really want. But because the transaction is technically valid, right? We can't call the transaction fasid. We can't call it defective. It won't be classed as defective, because the main sort of purpose for why you bought the mobile phone, which was a mobile phone, and that's what it was being sold as, a mobile phone, that has been fulfilled, that is. So the seller hasn't really kind of let you down there. So that's why the transaction would be valid if you chose to carry on with it. So you have a choice, and this can happen in anything, right? For example, let's say you buy a cake from a shop, and you said that, I want to buy a cake. And then you say to the person that, can you put in that cake, I don't know, some specific sort of like writing on the top of that cake, right? Or a specific ingredient inside that cake. If you had mentioned, if they had itemized it and said, look, this ingredient will cost this much, and they itemize it in the receipt, and you don't find that in the cake, then you can deduct that from the price of the cake, right? That makes sense. But if they don't mention it, and you found that they had the cake and didn't have the writing on there, or it didn't have that specific type of ingredient in there, then you have a choice. Either take the cake for the full price, you can't get a partial refund, or you leave the transaction, you nullify the transaction. That's up to you, that is. So you have full choice to be able to go whichever one you want, right? Now, when we talk about, in the next chapter, when we talk about defective contracts, right, one of the things we're going to be talking about is full refunds and partial refunds. When can you get a full refund, like in this case, and when can you get a partial refund? So we're going to be talking about those, inshallah, in the next chapter. So I hope you guys benefit from this lesson. If you guys are interested in studying Usul al-Fiqh, right, I've got Usul al-Fiqh courses on my uruq.com, and Usul al-Fiqh, and I've got Usul al-Shashi as well. So you can check that out if you're interested in that. And I've also got Quduri lessons on my YouTube channel that you can check out as well. And Jazakallah khair for all your support. Thank you very much. And just to summarize what we covered today. So in today's lesson, we covered regarding the ta'yin, 3 things. Ta'yin, is it permissible to buy one thing but to have a choice from several things? We said yes, as long as it's 3. Yeah, as long as it's 3 or less. Next masla was, if 2 people buy one item and both have taken khiyar ash-shart, what if one of them happens to be okay and wants to go ahead with the transaction? Does the other person still have their choice? We say no, right? It's only one choice. And the final masla is that if a person buys something which they don't find the description which they expected, right? If they don't find it, then they have a choice. Either they take it for the full price or they leave it. So Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much. And especially thank you to all my patrons as well. You guys are wonderful people. May Allah bless you guys. And I will see you guys next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair for watching this video. I hope to see all of you guys. If you guys are interested, please leave us feedback, get in contact with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair guys for all of your support. Without your support, I wouldn't have been able to produce the videos that I've put up on my YouTube channel. And there is so much more that I really want to do. And without the support of you guys who are patrons, generously supporting this channel, I've been able to get myself a camera, which as you guys can see, the quality of this camera, a mic system, software. I've been able to hire an editor. So what do I want to do? I want to make lots and lots and lots of more videos for beginners, for intermediate, advanced in the subjects like Arabic and fiqh and hadith and tafsir and aqidah and all those other things as well. And for this to happen, again, this channel needs support. So if you guys want to become patrons and support this channel, then check out the link below. Also, if you do become patrons, you'll have access to videos that I don't put up on my normal YouTube channel. So check that out, inshallah. And there's most other perks as well that you guys can benefit from. And if you want to access this channel through social media, we've got Twitter, we've got Instagram, Facebook page, and other things as well that you can visit. So Jazakumullah khair again, guys. Thank you very much for your support. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.